one of the first stations to ever play grunge music on rotation was a station here in Atlanta called 99X.
Yeah.
With
I remember
the
it.
station, what do they call the programmer? The station programmer being a lady named Leslie Fram, who
cool.
was like in radio will go down in history as one of the best radio programmers ever.
Nice.
Right? Leslie Fram.
Girl
boss indeed. And when they were playing like pop music on a station called Power 99.
Yeah, Power 99.
They hired Leslie and some other people, and they said these guys got together, this group of people, 4 or 5 of them got together and said, there's this new music. Why are we playing this crappy kind of outdated, pop music, Madonna and all this, Motley Crue and Poison and all this shit.
There's something new.
When Guns N' Roses, Mudhoney, the Pixies, there's these bands out there that are playing this new and exciting music, but no one's playing them. Or maybe one other station in the country was playing this kind of music, but not on full rotation.
It had to be in Seattle.
Of course. No, it was actually in L.A., I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there was an L.A. station that was keeping a, college station or something, like a low-watt station. So 99X flipped format, and they started playing basically listener requests for alternative, what was not known then as alternative music, but for music that wasn't pop necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Their favorite bands that they were hearing out on the streets, picking up CDs and these new bands that they were going to see. And what it became was this alternative format where they would play Soundgarden and Nirvana and Pearl Jam and, all of them. So
Black Hole Sun.
All of it. Bad Motor Finger, the first Soundgarden album. I just wore that
Temple
shit
of the Dog.
Temple of the Dog, Eddie Vedder's first Mother Love Bone, which was what Pearl Jam was before Eddie joined with Andrew Wood. I think it was his name, died of a heroin overdose. Anyway, you get it if you've, I know that some of our listeners are much younger than we are, but you have to be kind of dense not to know a little bit about the 90s and the grunge era. It lasted very shortly. It was like 1992 to 1996. It was a 4-year period when these guys took over the world.
Yes.
And Eddie Vedder
was at the forefront.
He kind of became the poster child because he was good looking. The music was accessible. Nirvana was a little bit more dirtier and grungier. So even though Kurt Cobain was certainly the voice of a generation, also Pearl Jam sold millions and millions and millions of records.
Oh, yeah.
And Eddie Vedder was anything but boring. But Eddie Vedder in a recent interview said that, it was time to change because all these, bands were dressing up like women, prancing their hair around and putting a bunch of makeup on. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It was the style of the time.
Yeah, it was.
But it was getting old, right? He says, listen, what was it?
Let me just wear my flannel
words?
shirt and be comfortable.
That's right. He said that Motley Crue was vacuous and despised. I'd end up being at shows that I wouldn't have chosen to go to. Bands that monopolized the late 80s MTV, the metal bands, and I'm trying to be nice here, that I despise. Girls, and Motley Crue. Fuck you. I hated it. I hated how they made those fellas look. He's trying to be nice. I hated how it made women look. It was so vacuous. I hated it.
Very misogynistic, for sure.
Oh, for sure. God. Look at any Motley Crue video from the 80s, and it's just tits and ass all over the place. And
Nikki Sixx's autobiography was just disgusting of some of the tales with the women. So,
The 80s hair bands were, Motley Crue, Poison, all of them. I can go through the list, but all of them were just super machismo. They dressed up like women, but they apparently hated women at the same time because they just...
they thought less of them.
Yeah, they objectified them any opportunity they got. That's really what MTV was all about for a few years there. And listen, that was what was selling. Yep. So they were getting rewarded for it. So it just kept on going. And, to be fair to whoever these yahoos were back then. But then Guns N' Roses came out. Yeah. Guns N' Roses changed the scene. I'm not saying that Guns N' Roses wasn't also, not objectifying women, because of course they were, but their music was different.
Yeah, it was.
It was hard. It was edgy. It was real. It was raw.
Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, that first album, Appetite for Destruction, was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is fucking good. And I also hated hair metal at the time. I wasn't a huge fan of Poison. I listened to it because that's what was there.
Right.
And I was also a young guy, 11, 12, 13, and impressionable. When Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction came out, I begged my parents to get that tape. I got that tape. and I wore it out
Yes.
within a year. It started warping because I just listened to it over and over again.
It's so good.
Yeah, and it was so like, and I knew, like Mr. Brownstone, I knew they were talking about heroin. Even at 12 years old,
Yeah.
I knew they were talking about heroin, and I loved the fact, in my head, I was like, this is so fucking, I'm so fucking
Right,
cool.
real.
Yeah. Mr. Brownstone. So
He
anyway,
won't leave me alone.
he won't leave me alone. No. He won't leave me alone. Stuck it in the middle, and I stuck it in the middle, and I get me out of my mind. I used to know better, and I never knew better. You leave it all behind. What a great album. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's for you, Rachel.
Yes.
Straight in your face. Little Axl Rose. So Eddie says, I hated it. Just he's basically saying the sentiment of everybody at the time, right? And then Nikki Sixx replies, made me laugh today reading how much the singer of Pearl Jam hated Motley Crue.
The singer of Pearl Jam, like he doesn't know his
like, you don't know
name.
who it is. He basically took your fucking job. There's a reason why you guys stopped touring in 1992. It's because no one wanted to hear you. They wanted to hear Eddie, right? And that's what happens. New music comes in, old music fades out.
No, it's a fresh batch that comes in.
And listen, you're back touring with Motley Crue, so you know you guys look like a bunch of skeletons up there. But hey, especially that bassist. What's his name? He looks like a fucking. I think he might have actually passed away. Am I talking about a dead person? I'm talking about a dead person. He looked like a dead person even when he wasn't dead. So he says, now considering, I hated how the Pearl Jam singer said, considering they're one of the most boring bands in history, I guess it's kind of a compliment that he hates us. So hashtag stadium tour, hashtag rock and roll. Now, you douche. Listen, yeah, cool story about you mainlining vodka.
Right.
What a shining example to the rest of the world.
His book, The Heroin Diaries, is awful.
It's awful.
I read it because I was curious. I like rock autobiographies, but I felt gross by the time I had been done reading it.
Yeah, listen, I hardly think Eddie Vedder in 1992.
He was hanging on by threads. He would go into his closet and just like go mad.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was doing so much heroin and just drugs, coke, whatever.
Because that was the embellished lifestyle that they lived. And then Eddie Vedder, Kurt Cobain, and so many others. I'm talking about the ones that our audience, everybody would know, right? Yeah. But there are so many others that were kind of the anti Motley Crue / Poison / Stick, whatever. And the reason why they were is because they said it's enough, it's bullshit, it's unreal, it's not true. Now, that's not to say that Eddie Vedder didn't put some, effects on his vocals too. He did, but then years later released it without the vocals. Eddie Vedder is far from a boring lead singer.
Far from it. I agree.
Oh my God, this drives me
crazy.
And
he's still relevant.
Very relevant.
I mean, they're hanging on.
Very relevant to me.
They're hanging on, to the past. Eddie's doing new stuff.
They're all doing new stuff.
Yeah.
He's on his own tour. Listen, Eddie, they too will have their moment when it just looks like they're propping them up there to make a couple bucks. It happens to everybody. But, listen, the Rolling Stones are still touring.
Absolutely.
They're still considered super cool. And and I mean,
they're amazing.
And they're still making new records too. I haven't heard a new Motley Crue record. Or maybe they put one out, but I haven't heard about it. Right? I hardly think this is even an argument. Eddie Vedder is not one of the most boring lead singers that ever was, and Nikki Sixx was kind of washed up at that time. Now, I know that there's lots of people that probably like Motley Crue and go and watch them, and will argue with me to the nth degree about Motley Crue and their relevance in rock and roll history. Here's what I got to say. Pearl Jam, the combined members of Pearl Jam are worth $500 million.
Wow.
$500 million, with Eddie being like 150 and the rest of the band being 70 or 80 apiece.
That's amazing.
Nikki Sixx and the members of Motley Crue are worth a little less than $200 million. Now, you say, how many albums have the two sold? Well, they don't sell albums anymore. That's not how it works, right? You sell songs. But the Pearl Jam has sold 150 million copies of some version of their music, with Motley Crue selling a little less than 100 million, like 98 million.
Yeah.
So who's boring now, you fucktwad? This makes me mad. I didn't have any bone to pick with you, Nikki, and now I do.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Dr. Phil had there was a lady that was married to you on Dr. Phil?
Yeah, we did a show about that.
Some lady thought she was married to Nikki Sixx, and you went on Dr. Phil to let her know that you weren't married together. Anybody who shows up on Dr. Phil is not cool.
Right.
Not cool. Rock and roll stars don't go on Dr. Phil.
Hashtag.
Yeah.
Not cool.
And when Dr. Phil, I think in the clip, he was like, a good friend of mine, Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue. We like to get together and blow cocaine out strippers' assholes.
Who does a show about that anyways, Dr. Phil? Like,
Dr. Phil, please. Listen.
Don't get us on that.
Don't get us on that. We shouldn't talk about Dr. Phil. He's on our network, so just leave it alone. Okay. But Dr. Phil is hardly the bellwether of cool.
Exactly right.
I'm sure that there are many 50-year-old soccer moms who are into him. And fine, cool, whatever you're into. Maury Povich is still on too. Mm-hmm. But Nikki Sixx, Dr. Phil had him in his cell phone. He had Nikki Sixx in his cell phone. Tell me it was fucking boring now. You have Dr. Phil on speed dial, dude. I guarantee you Eddie Vedder does not have Dr. Phil on speed dial.